Ford has 5,000 open mechanic positions at dealerships across America right now. They are offering up to $120,000 a year to fill them. The positions are not being filled. The National Automobile Dealer Association estimates the industry is short approximately 37,000 trained technicians every year, not as a one-time gap, but as an ongoing annual shortage. The pipeline is not producing enough new mechanics to replace the ones leaving. And the ones leaving are not going to different shops. They are leaving the industry entirely. The average wait time for a service appointment at a dealership has gone from 3.5 days to close to 5 days in a single year. 20% of customers at some brands are now waiting more than a week just to get an appointment. Not to get the work done. To get on the schedule. For motorcycle riders, this matters in a specific and immediate way. Motorcycle service capacity is tighter than automotive. The authorized dealer network for any major motorcycle brand is smaller than the car dealer network. The independent motorcycle shop, the operation that handles the work the franchise dealers cannot absorb, is the first thing that disappears when the economics of running a service business stop working. When your motorcycle needs service and the nearest authorized dealer has a 3-week wait and the independent shop you trusted for years has closed, you are looking at the practical consequence of a problem that has been building for decades. I'm Jimmy. This is what is actually happening and why. Part 1. What the flat rate system actually is and why it matters. The flat rate pay system is the foundation of how most automotive and motorcycle dealership mechanics are compensated. Understanding it explains most of what is driving the exodus. Here's how it works. The manufacturer publishes a labor time guide. Every service operation has an assigned time. A brake job might be assigned 1.5 hours. An oil change might be assigned 0.3 hours. A valve adjustment on a specific motorcycle engine might be assigned 2 hours. The technician is paid for the assigned time, not the actual time spent. If the brake job takes him 45 minutes, he gets paid for 1.5 hours. If he is fast, the system rewards him. If the job goes wrong, if a bolt snaps on a 15-year-old motorcycle with rust in every thread, if a part is wrong and has to be returned, if the diagnostic takes 4 hours because the fault is intermittent, he gets paid for the assigned time regardless of what actually happened. A technician doing a complex diagnostic that takes 4 hours gets paid 1 hour. He just worked 3 hours for free. Now here is the compounding problem. When there is no work in the shop, when the appointment book is light on a Tuesday afternoon, the flat rate technician earns nothing. He is at work. He is available. His tools are there. His expertise is there. He is simply not being paid because no job has been assigned to him. A plumber waiting on a job site earns his hourly rate while he waits. A flat rate technician earns 0. The math produces a specific kind of pressure. A technician who needs to earn $800 to cover his week's expenses has to produce a certain number of flag hours. Every hour he spends on a job that takes longer than the manual says it should is an hour he cannot spend on the next job. The system teaches the technician to treat time as the enemy. The predictable outcome of that teaching is shortcuts, not because technicians are dishonest, but because the compensation structure incentivizes speed above everything else. The opposite pressure applies to quality. The technician who does a brake job carefully, who checks the hardware the manual does not require checking, who catches a problem the customer did not come in for, that technician earns the same as the one who does the minimum. He has also spent more time, which means he has earned less per hour. The system punishes thoroughness. Part 2, the cost to become a mechanic. The flat rate system operates on top of a startup cost structure that most people outside the trades do not know exists. A mechanic buys his own tools, not the shop's tools, his own. Every socket, every wrench, every specialty tool required for the jobs he is assigned, purchased from his own pocket, and carried in his own toolbox that follows him from job to job. The tool truck arrives at the shop every week. Snap-on, Mac Tools, and Matco, mobile stores that extend credit to technicians for tool purchases. A basic professional tool set at entry level costs several $1,000s. A complete professional toolbox with the full range of tools required for diagnostic and repair work across multiple makes and models costs anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000 or more over a career. One retired mechanic in the attached transcripts calculated he spent close to $40,000 on tools over 13 years before he finally had what he needed. These tools are not a sound financial investment. When his friend's mother tried to sell his toolbox back to the Mac tool representative after he passed, she received 25 cents on the dollar. The tools that had cost $80,000 to accumulate over a career were bought back for $20,000. They are not investments. They are the cost of admission to a job that also requires flat rate performance to produce adequate income. The health insurance situation compounds this. Health insurance at most dealerships for a family runs $1,200 to $2,000 per month in premium costs. The deductibles are high enough that the coverage functions primarily as catastrophic protection rather than practical health care. The mechanic who canceled his health insurance the night before his surgery because his employer decided not to renew it and received a $120,000 bill is an extreme case. The underlying dynamic of inadequate, expensive benefits in a physically demanding job is documented across the industry. A 33-year-old mechanic with a hip replacement, carpal tunnel, a torn rotator cuff, and documented neck and back injuries from a slip on a shop floor covered in untreated transmission fluid is not an unusual outcome for someone who spent 15 years working flat rate in a physically demanding environment with a mental calculus of a production worker rather than a craftsman. Part 3. Why the motorcycle service shortage is worse than the car shortage. The automotive service shortage affects car owners. The motorcycle service shortage affects motorcycle riders specifically and more severely for 3 structural reasons. The first reason is dealer density. Ford has thousands of authorized service locations across the United States. Harley-Davidson has approximately 400 active dealers, down from over 700 a decade ago. Honda's motorcycle dealer network is a fraction of its automotive dealer network. For any given motorcycle brand, the authorized service infrastructure is thinner than any comparable car brand, and it is getting thinner as dealers close. The second reason is specialization. A mechanic trained on automotive platforms can often transfer skills to another automotive brand. The diagnostic systems, the service procedures, and the general mechanical principles carry across manufacturers with moderate training. Motorcycle service has additional specialization layers, the two-wheel dynamics, the specific service procedures for motorcycle-specific systems, the distinct maintenance schedules. That means an automotive technician cannot simply shift to motorcycle service without meaningful additional training. The pipeline is already thin. The specialization requirement makes it thinner. The third reason is the independent shop dynamic. The independent motorcycle shop has historically served the riders that the franchise dealer network cannot fully absorb. The independent takes the older machines, the machines whose manufacturers no longer have local dealer representation, the work that arrives without appointments in the middle of a riding season. These shops operate on tight margins and depend heavily on the owner's willingness to work long hours for modest returns. As the economics of operating a small service business become more difficult, rising rent, rising insurance, rising tool costs against flat service rates, independent motorcycle shops close at a rate that the franchise network does not replace. When the independent closes and the nearest authorized dealer has a 3-week wait, the rider has a motorcycle that needs service and no accessible path to get it. The service situation described here changes how you should evaluate motorcycle maintenance decisions in 2026. A rider who depends entirely on dealer service for everything the owner's manual specifies is a rider whose machine's health is tied to the availability of a system under documented strain. Section 7 of the 2026 Motorcycle Buyer's Bible has the complete DIY maintenance schedule with every task listed alongside the dealer rate and the actual cost to do it yourself. The gap between those two numbers, across the oil change, the chain service, the valve check, the brake fluid, is the amount of money and schedule dependency that a rider who learns to do their own maintenance removes from the equation entirely. Section 6 has the dealer interaction scripts for when dealer service is necessary and you are navigating the current market's specific pressures. Link in the description. Was $97, now $9. Part 4. The service writer problem. The person you interact with when you drop your motorcycle or car off for service is typically a service writer or service advisor in the current industry terminology. Understanding what that person is and what they are paid to do changes how you should navigate every service interaction. Service writers at dealerships are frequently compensated on commission. Their income is tied to the dollar value of the service tickets they generate. They are, in the most direct description, salespeople who happen to work in a service department. The service writer who writes up your ticket does not personally inspect your vehicle. They receive a description of your concern from you, translate it into a work order for the technician, and then sell you additional services based on whatever the technician reports finding. The service writer who tells you that your brake fluid needs changing, your cabin filter is due, your transmission fluid is dark, and your tire rotation was past due, that service writer may be giving you accurate information or may be generating ticket value. You have no direct way to know from the counter. The specific problem identified across the attached transcripts is the communication chain. You describe the problem to the service writer communicates a version of it to the technician works from that communication, and the result sometimes has no relationship to what you actually described. Service writers who have never worked as technicians do not know what information a technician needs to diagnose efficiently. Service writers who have been technicians, and some of the best shops run this way, communicate in a language the technician can work with. The 50% annual turnover rate documented among service advisors is not incidental. The position is structured to produce churn, high pressure, commission dependent, requiring simultaneous customer management and technical communication in a context where the customer often does not understand what they are being told and the technician often does not have time to explain. The person who survives long-term in that environment either becomes genuinely skilled at the communication balance or becomes skilled at maximizing ticket value. Those are not the same outcome. Part 5. The consequence for the rider who understands nothing. The rider who bought a motorcycle because they loved how it looked and who has never looked at the owner's manual is the most vulnerable person in the system. Not because they are foolish, because the complexity of modern motorcycles has been marketed as a feature rather than a dependency. Variable valve timing, ride-by-wire throttle, multiple riding modes, lean angle sensing ABS, electronically controlled suspension, these are genuine engineering achievements that improve performance and safety. They are also systems that cannot be diagnosed or serviced without manufacturer-specific diagnostic software, which means they cannot be serviced at all outside of an authorized service network. The manufacturer who designs a motorcycle so that its basic functions require dealer diagnostic hardware to maintain has created a customer who must return to the dealer for service regardless of the dealer's pricing, wait times, or quality. The dependency is structural. It is not an accident. This is the same dynamic the attached transcript on connected vehicles documents in the car world. The shift from a machine you own and can maintain to a machine you license access to and must return to the manufacturer's ecosystem to keep functional. For motorcycle riders, the practical version of this problem is already here. The rider who bought a 2023 sport bike with a complex electronic suite and who lost their local dealer to closure is now looking at the nearest authorized service facility 60 miles away with a 3-week wait. Their owner's manual says the bike needs a valve check. The valve check requires the manufacturer's diagnostic software to reset the service indicator after completion. They cannot have an independent shop do the work and reset the indicator without that software. They are in the queue. The rider on the 2000 Ranger equivalent, the simple, honest, fully understood machine, is not in that queue. They checked their valves last weekend with feeler gauges and a torque wrench. Their service indicator is a sticker they wrote the date on with a marker. Part 6. What the shops that are surviving are doing differently. The German car repair shop that operated for 41 years, never advertised, and stayed swamped because happy customers kept sending people. That shop's owner identified the principle in one sentence. When people got $2,500 estimates from the dealers, they asked their friends, and the friends directed them to someone they trusted. The shops that are surviving the current contraction are the ones that have recognized what the industry's general behavior has made rare: an honest diagnosis, a fair price, and a service interaction where the technician explains what was actually found and what it actually needed. This sounds obvious to the point of being trivial. It is not obvious when the business model of most service operations is built around extracting maximum ticket value from each customer interaction. The service writer paid on commission, the flat rate technician incentivized to move quickly to the next job, the shop management setting daily revenue targets. These structures push against the simple outcome of telling the customer exactly what their machine needs and charging a fair rate for fixing it. The shops that operate differently pay their technicians salary rather than flat rate, do not set ticket quotas, treat a misdiagnosis as an opportunity to learn rather than a cause for punitive action. They report two consistent outcomes: they have more work than they can handle, and they cannot find technicians because the pool of quality technicians willing to stay in the industry is shrinking faster than the pool of good shops. The motorcycle shop owner who runs his operation the right way is not struggling to find customers. He is struggling to find technicians who have not yet been driven out of the trade by the conditions that dominate the industry's mainstream. Part 7. The African Mechanics Principle and what it means here. In Kampala and Nairobi, motorcycle mechanics who work from roadside shops with hand tools are keeping 1970s Honda CG125s running after 50 years of daily service. They have no manufacturer diagnostic software. They have no specialized tooling. They have accumulated knowledge, specific, deep, earned through decades of working on the same engines, and the willingness to fabricate what they cannot source. The mechanic in that environment is not a vanishing figure. He is the essential infrastructure of an economy that depends on his knowledge. He is respected precisely because his knowledge is visibly, immediately necessary. The mechanic in the American dealership system is not respected. He is, in the words of one experienced technician, the lowest man on the list, below the car wash guys, the person whose tools he needs to own, whose skills he needed to develop over years, whose knowledge the service department sells at $200 an hour. That person takes home $40 to $45 in flat rate, pay per billable hour when there is work, and zero when there is not. The flat rate system, the tool ownership requirement, the inadequate benefits, the physical toll, and the management culture that punishes mistakes without acknowledging effort. These are all symptoms of an industry that has decided the craftsman is a cost center rather than an asset. The craftsman has reached the same conclusion and left. What fills the gap is not a new generation of technicians. It is a generation of vehicle owners who have decided that learning to maintain their own machines is the only reliable solution in a service environment they no longer trust. The 70-year-old man who started changing the oil on his 3 Toyotas because of what he learned, watching honest mechanics explain their work, is one data point. Multiply that across everyone who has been handed a $2,500 estimate for work they later found out was unnecessary, and you have a customer base that is actively building the knowledge the industry decided was not worth compensating. The rider who understands their machine, who can check the valve clearances, change the oil, adjust the chain, service the brakes, and catch the small problem before it becomes the large one, is not dependent on a system that is under documented strain. Their machine is not in a 3-week queue. Their competence is not for sale at $200 an hour. That knowledge is available. The tools are accessible. The owner's manual is in the glove box. The mechanic shortage is a crisis for riders who have outsourced their knowledge entirely. For riders who have kept it, it is a reason to be glad they did.